Welcome to this edition of the Morning Call. Now, since taking office after Ban Ki-moon, António Guterres' first trip has brought him to Somalia in what he termed as solidarity with the people of the country. Now, the visit is expected to draw attention to the drought in Somalia that has so far claimed lives due to hunger and cholera outbreak. The United Nations chief, during a briefing, said the challenges facing Somalia, a combination of hunger, drought, conflict, and disease, require massive response, while appealing for $825 million to help alleviate this crisis. Last month, the World Health Organization gave a warning that the country was at risk of its third famine in 25 years. In 2011, 260,000 Somalis starved to death due to famine.
I remember seeing Somalis come in terrible situations and who suffered in a manner that is absolutely unacceptable in the modern world. The other remark from UN Secretary-General and former humanitarian António Guterres in Mogadishu. According to the World Health Organization, more than 6.2 million people, almost half the population, are in need of emergency humanitarian assistance in Somalia, with nearly 3 million people suffering from hunger. According to the Somali government, 110 people died on Monday because of hunger.
Now, online with us today in the morning, we have Sophie Gard-Toml. She is the Deputy Head of Office, United Nations Office of Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Somalia. Good morning, Sophie. The United Nations Secretary-General says people are dying, and he also called for the world to act at the present. How there is the situation on the ground as people are concerned with what is going on?
So in some of the worst affected areas, the poor rainfall has led to a complete wipeout of crops and killed livestock. And a lot of communities are being forced to sell their assets, borrow food and money to survive. A lot of shops, which traditionally would bridge the gaps by providing credits and so forth, are shutting the doors to those who can't afford to pay anything. We're seeing a lot of displacement caused by drought-related distress. So movements from the rural areas into towns, and even some moving across the border to Ethiopia, for example, looking for life-saving and livelihood opportunities on the other side of the border. We've got a total of 6.2 million people who are acutely food insecure and in need of humanitarian assistance. And that's more than half of the population in Somalia. So it's a really very dire situation. The children are a particular concern and very severely affected. We've already got 363,000 acutely malnourished children who need urgent nutrition support. And we could potentially be looking at close to 1 million malnourished children in Somalia this year.
Now, those are some staggering figures you just mentioned, but when you talk of urgent humanitarian aid, what exactly do you need now to save lives?
The main focus of the humanitarian partners is to scale up the extent of nutritional support, the food support for food security, for health, and really try to address the first of all the food insecurity and the malnutrition, but also to look at stemming the acute watery diarrhea and cholera outbreaks that often come with famine or with acute food insecurity and drought. What we're seeing right now is that there's a real outbreak of AWD cholera in the drought-affected areas. Bay and Bakol is particularly hard hit. But in total, we've got more than half of the districts in the whole country affected by AWD cholera right now. So that needs to be addressed through water and sanitation activities.
Now, Sophie, according to information we've retrieved from the OCHA website, you have received only 8% of total amount needed for the humanitarian assistance in the country. Are donors not forthcoming with this situation?
We will need a total of $825 million for famine prevention. That's from January to June 2017. Donors have been very quick and very responsive to these calls for assistance and are really stepping up. But the big challenge right now is that the money hasn't hit the ground yet, if you like. We're still in the process of scaling up. This is a massive undertaking that will be required a very short amount of time.
Well, that was Sophie Tomla. She's talking to us from Nairobi, Kenya, from the office of the United Nations Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Somalia.